Writing quadratic equations and functions. Okay, this is what we have. We're going to work backward. So what this stuff does is they're going to give you the roots, and then you have to write the quadratic equation. Okay, so before they gave you the quadratic equation, x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0, and you found the roots. Now they're going to give you the roots and you have to find the equation. Well, it's pretty simple to do. It's not so bad. So let's take R1 and R2. So there's your two roots, R1 and R2, and those are the roots. Let me take the top of that off of that. Are the roots of the quadratic equation. Okay, so roots R1 and root R2 are what you find when you factor a quadratic equation. But this time we're going to go backward. So this is all you have to do. So you're going to use this form. So use this form. X squared minus, and that's a big minus there because that's the piece you're going to forget, minus, because the rest is pretty simple, R1 plus R2 x plus R1 times R2 equals 0. So that is the formula, okay, for writing a quadratic equation. I have R1 plus R2, R1 times R2. So those are the two pieces that we really have to pay attention to. This and that. Okay, yeah, let me give you an example. So once you see the example, you'll think, oh yeah, it's pretty simple. Okay, so here's an example, and this is just this really simple one, and then I'll take you into some that are a little more difficult. But, so here's an example of one that's pretty simple. Let's say I have 3 and -5. So those are my two roots. Okay, so those are my two roots, and now they want a quadratic equation. Well, all I have to do is this. I just have to find R1 plus R2, which would be 3 plus -5, which would be -2, right? Okay, that's this one. And then I have to find R1 times R2, which would be 3 times -5, which would be -15. Once I find those, I'm just going to plug them back in to here. So the first one, the R1 plus R2, goes here, and the R1 times R2 goes there. Now the only thing you have to do and make sure of is that that's a minus sign. So I'm going to write it like this, so you see that I have a minus sign there that I cannot forget. My R1 plus R2 is a -2x, and then I have plus this number here, so -15 equals 0. Well, that's not how you would write it. You know, you got to take care of these signs. So I have a negative and a negative. That's going to give me a positive. So x squared plus 2x, and a positive and a negative is going to give me a -15 equals 0. And there's the quadratic equation that has these roots. So I found these roots and put them in. So let's see, we can do a few steps here, I suppose. So step one is R1 plus R2. Step 2 is R1 times R2. Step 3 is put into formula, and make sure there are no fractions. Okay, make sure there's no fractions. So that's kind of what we're looking for there. All right, so that was a pretty simple one. Let's do this. Let's do another one right off to the side of it. I'm going to show you a fraction. Okay, don't be afraid of the fraction. It's okay. Don't fear the fraction. You can do it. I know you can do it. Okay, so R1 plus R2 is going to give me 1/2 plus -5/2, or it's going to give me -4/2 or -2. That's R1 plus R2. R1 times R2 is going to give me 1/2 times -5/2, which is going to give me negative. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 2 is 4. So -5/4. I'm going to put it into my equation. So I'm just going to follow this, right? R1 plus R2 is a -2. So I have x squared. Don't forget this minus, because that's where you're going to mess up. Guarantee it. Don't forget that that's minus. I'm going to put it in there every time until you say, okay, already, I get it. It's minus. All right, and then I have plus -5/4 equals 0. And then, so I put it into the formula, and then I'm going to fix up these signs, and I'm going to make sure that there are no fractions. So fixing up these signs, I'd have x squared plus 2x minus 5/4 equals 0. But I have a fraction, and I don't want a fraction. I can't really keep the fraction. So I'm going to have to multiply both sides by, or I'm going to multiply each piece. So each piece in here is going to be multiplied by 4, right? So everything is going to be multiplied by 4 to get rid of the fraction. Now these fractions here, right here, this 4 and that 4 are going to cancel out. So what I end up with, and of course 0 times 4 is just 0, so I end up with 4x squared plus 8x minus 5 equals 0. And that is my quadratic equation with these roots. All right. It's as simple as that. So pretty much I just need to show you some more examples, and then we'll be done, because it's just that simple. So I'm gonna switch pages on you here, and I'm gonna show you just a couple more examples, and I think we've got it. This is a short one for sure. Okay, and so let's see. Let's rewrite that form up here so we don't forget what it is, and I'll show you a couple more. Remember that subtraction. I have R1 plus R2 x plus R1 times R2. So here's another example for you. Let me pick a couple here that are good. All right, how about this one? Here's my roots. 1 plus square root 5, 1 minus square root 5. Okay, so there's my roots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find R1 plus R2, which is going to be 1 plus square root 5 plus 1 minus square root 5, which is going to give me, those square root 5s are going to cancel out. I have a positive and negative, and I'm going to end up with 2. So I got a 2 there. And then I have R1 times R2. Now that's a little more difficult, but you guys can handle it. It's no biggie. Right? They're conjugates, so I know the middle term drops out. So really what I'm going to end up with is 1 minus square root 5 times square root 5 is 5. 1 minus 5, or negative 4. Now I'm ready to put it back in here. So what I end up with is x squared And remember it's minus 2 plus negative 4 equals 0. And then the plus and minus would just be minus. Alright, so this quadratic equation is going to give me those roots. So I'm just working backward. That's all I'm doing. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do another one that's conjugate. And we'll do an imaginary number this time. So I have 8 plus I and I have 8 minus I. Okay, so I guess if you want to label these examples, these are examples of conjugates. Okay, R1 plus R2 would give me 8 plus I plus 8 minus I, which is just going to end up giving me 16, right? Because those i's are going to cancel. And then I have R1 times R2, which is going to give me 8 plus I times 8 minus I. They're conjugates, so 8 times 8 is 64. I, positive I times a negative I is negative I squared, but I squared is negative 1. So really, it's plus 1 or 65. Okay. And then I just have to go into my formula. So x squared minus 16x plus 65 equals 0, and then I found it. Okay, and then check your work just to make sure. Let me check really quick because I didn't. Usually I pre-do these and I didn't. That's going to give me 16, right? 8 times 8 is 64. Positive times a negative is a negative. I squared, but I squared is negative 1, which would be a plus 1 or 65. All right, I think I got it. I think it's okay. Okay, and then one more example. Switch pages again, and I think we've got it. This one is a short one, which I'm sure you're happy about. Okay, just make sure everything's good. So here's another example. This one is going to be a little uglier. This one's going to be with a radical and a fraction. Okay, so they can get a little more difficult, but just you know what to do, and just take them one step at a time, and you'll get through it here. I can show you another way to do it, but I think this is probably the best one for now. 2 plus square root 5 over 3. 2 minus square root 5 over 3. So even if it looks like that, it's still okay. I'm going to put it into that formula, x squared minus R1 plus R2x plus R1 times R2 equals 0. So that's what I'm putting it into. So I need to find R1 plus R2, which is going to give me 2 plus square root 5 over 3 plus 2 minus square root 5 over 3. I have the common denominator, so I know in the end it's going to be over 3. And I have 2 plus 2 is 4. These square root, I have a positive square root 5, a negative square root 5, they cancel out, so I end up with 4/3. Okay, and then I need R1 times R2. So that's going to give me 2 plus square root 5 over 3 times 2 minus square root 5 over 3. I know on the bottom I'm going to get 9, so don't forget that. 3 times 3 is 9. And on the top, they're conjugate, so I know the middle term's going to drop out. 2 times 2 is 4. I have a plus and a minus. That's going to give me a minus. Square root 5 times square root 5 is 5. So I end up here with a negative 1/9. So kind of ugly because I have a bunch of fractions, but it's okay. You're going to end up with fractions, and we're going to get rid of them. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. So I have x squared minus 4/3, and then I have plus a negative. I'm just going to write it this way. Okay, and then I need to fix up these signs. So I have x squared minus 4/3 x minus 1/9 equals 0. Got the equals 0 there. Okay, but it has a fraction. I need to get rid of it. So if I need to get rid of a fraction, I'm going to take the biggest denominator here, and of course 3 goes into 9, so I can use it. I'm going to multiply each piece by it. So it's going to be 9 times x squared. I'm going to have a 9 times here, a 9 times here, and a 9 times here. Okay, just get rid of that fraction because I can't have it. So that's going to give me 9x squared. 3 goes into itself once and into 9 3 times. So that's going to give me 12. So minus 12x. These are going to cancel out, and I'm going to end up with 1, or minus 1. And 0 times 9, of course, is 0. And there is my answer, just like that. Okay, so with the fractions, yeah, it's a little different, you know, but I think you guys can handle it. Don't be afraid of it, because usually they're conjugates, and a lot of it's going to cancel out. You're not going to have to deal with these radicals. All right, and then just make sure you get rid of the fraction in the end. I think that's pretty much it. Here's another, I mean, this is like about all we can do to you. There's no more torture we can bestow upon you besides what I've done here. So this one's R1 plus R2. So it's going to give me 2 plus I square root 3 plus 2 minus I square root 3. Those guys cancel out, and I just get a 4. The I square root 3's cancel out. And then I have R1 times R2. Or I have 2 plus I square root 3, 2 minus I square root 3. It's a conjugate, so I know that the middle term is going to drop out. So really I just have 2 times 2 is 4. I have a minus. Square root 3 times square root 3 is 3i squared. But that I squared goes to a negative 1. So really what I have is 4 plus 3, or 7. So when I write my equation, I'm going to have x squared minus whatever this number is, which is 4x plus 7 equals 0. Okay, and then that would be my quadratic equation. And then go back and kind of check, because like I said, I didn't really do these prior to filming this. So that's going to give me 2 or 4. Those drop out. Good. Okay, and here I have 2 times 2 is 4. Positive, negative, that's going to give me a negative. Square root 3 times square root 3 is 3. I squared, which is negative. So that whole thing's going to go positive, which gives me 7, which is my last term, which is good. That's it. All right, you guys. That was a quick one. They just take some playing with. So I will see you in class.